Welcome to Golden Goal TV. We are live and we are back on. Welcome to this Premier League review show, episode 2. We will review last weekend's games and we will also hopefully get some interaction from you. So to those that saw the advert on social media and kept an eye on the channel, you know we've gone live. For those that haven't, do not worry. We will be posting the link to the live stream once we start talking, so I can do this. But yes, let's introduce the panel first. We've got George. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm all good. Despite the results, but we'll all talk about it later. Back on the show also is Nick. Nick, how are you?
All good. Hubert, how are you?
Fantastic. Very good. Very good. Yes, we'll talk Newcastle City actually as well. So yeah, all good there. Right, so let's start first of all with the Liverpool game. Liverpool 3, Bournemouth 1. Not many people expected Bournemouth to score first, but some of our predictions did predict Bournemouth to score in general. So it was an interesting game, George, and we'll start with you. And we are going to start with, well, the controversial one, really. You know, McAllister, I mean, there's a debate. Some people say it was right, some people say it wasn't. What's your view on, well, the game and then the red card?
Yeah, so I thought Bournemouth would score because I think defensively Liverpool are quite poor. Then they still need to bring in a centre. Well, they brought Endo in now, but at the time they hadn't brought anyone in. So, and I feel they still need a centre half. So I wasn't surprised Bournemouth scored. The game on the whole, I thought it just was a bit of a shock, really, for Bournemouth to get a goal, and then Liverpool woke up. Salah got his goal. The McAllister red card, I can see both sides of it. I can, like, if it was an Arsenal player, would have been harsh. That would have been harsh, and I would have felt that. We'll come to referees later in the show. But then I can see why it was given. So I think the right decision's been made, probably being someone unbiased, like by it being rescinded. It don't really change the game for me, red card or not, like where some games it would, where it normally would. So I still don't think Liverpool look that great. Like, if you're talking about early starts and that, do I think anyone looks that great? I don't think anyone's blowing teams away, but I think there's certain teams making their mark already. But Liverpool, it's just a little bit too early for me.
And Nick, we'll come to you. When it comes to the game, what were your thoughts on Liverpool's performance in general? You know, do you think Liverpool's performance was convincing? Do you think Liverpool still have, a lot to do, or is it just a case of, 3 points? Does it matter?
Well, I don't think it was convincing performance to start off with. They could have conceded 2 goals at the start in the first 5 minutes, but once they got going, they had a lot of chances and they just didn't take them. They weren't clinical enough. They could have scored way more goals than they did. I don't think the red card, I can see why it was given, but people will say it's harsh. But I don't think that affected Liverpool. That didn't come into play because I think Liverpool went on and scored not long after the red card. So it didn't really affect the game in any way. I think Liverpool, they got 4 points out of the first 2 games, but I haven't really been that convinced by how they play, and I think they need definitely another centre back and another midfielder on top of Endo.
Yeah, see, I thought it was one of these things. I think a lot of people did wonder whether this game would be, another 9-0 drumming like it was last season, and most of us did kind of say that it was going to be unlikely. I didn't watch the actual game, so I wasn't sure with McAllister whether it was what exactly happened and whether it was legitimate, whether it was the right decision or not. However, Liverpool did pretty well. I predicted on Super 6 that Bournemouth will not score, despite my prediction on the show, but hey ho. So, yeah, Liverpool getting wins, convincing enough, I guess, but there's still certainly doubts with certain players in the squad, but it'll be interesting to see. It's tricky to tell with 2 games in. If you want to put in your predictions, feel free to comment on the show. We will read them out. I'll go through some comments in a bit if there are any. Moving on to the next game, I want to talk Wolves-Brighton here. So it finished, I believe, 4-1 to Brighton, if I'm correct. And George, I think a lot of people, based on Wolves' performance against Man United, a lot of people, I think, expected that game to go very differently to what it did. And then Brighton, of course, carrying on the momentum from the Luton game. What did you think?
I thought Brighton would easily win, to be fair. They played well against Man United, and Man United were lucky to win, but it's the problem with Wolves. They're not consistent enough, and that's why I think they'll be in a relegation battle. I know they brought Gary O'Neill in, but just they haven't got the right players for me. And Brighton, they're looking, like I said, teams blowing everyone apart. The only one I can see doing that at Brighton are one of those teams. They've started really well. I think you'll start to see a bit of a different Brighton perhaps when Europa League starts. But I keep saying that, but then they go and buy players, so they're building a squad that won't be affected. So I don't know. Mate, the way Brighton are playing, there's nothing to rule them out having another good season. I think the difference between you see like Wolves and Brighton is Brighton's being clinical, like with Estupinian and Enciso, March, Matoma. Them players are just on a different level sometimes. And Solly March is the one for me. Like he doesn't get the plaudits like the Matomas and Estupinians do, but I'm not sure if Solly March is English. I'm not sure if he is.
I think he is English.
I think he is, yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't. He's got to be at least mentioned or considered for this international break that's coming up.
I think they interviewed him on either Today or Talk Sport, and that was actually mentioned.
Yeah, so I don't understand if he's not. Because in his position, at the minute, who would he be competing against? It's worth giving him a go. And I think he's done really well. With Wolves, they don't have anyone who can really score. I know they did score, but obviously they lost Jimenez to Fulham, but it looks like Pedro Neto could be going and a couple others, but I don't know. I fear for Wolves personally.
Nick, what's your thought when it comes to Wolves? Do you think that performance against United was a one-off? Do you think Brighton were just too good for them? Do you fear for Wolves? Do you think they are relegation bound?
I said they would be in relegation battle, Wolves, but I didn't put them in my 3 to go down. I just think Brighton were just way better than Wolves in this match. They were just more clinical. With their finishing, they just took the chances, and Wolves didn't. Brighton have got so many good players like Matoma, Estupiñán, Solly March, Danny Welbeck, Ferguson. They've got quite a lot of good players, João Pedro. So I think they what they've done in the summer. Yes, they lost players, but they've signed players to make sure that the squad is big enough to cope with Premier League and European commitments. But I think Brighton will probably challenge for Europe again this season and probably finish top half.
I mean, it's worth keeping in mind also that it'll, for now, Brighton, they're doing pretty well because their European involvement has not started yet. It will be very interesting to see what Brighton will be like once they actually begin their Europa League campaign when the group stage starts, because that's when it really starts to show how well prepared teams are to face fighting on multiple fronts, which I think will be quite interesting. And that's where we will see how well Brighton do. I think at the moment that they need to make the most of the momentum they've got, but because it will be interesting whether it falls off or whether it weakens when the Europa League starts. When as for Wolves, I don't know if the problem's the manager. I don't know I think the problem is the fact that they barely bought anyone and they lost players again. And to me, that's not going to make you last long in the Premier League. So although Wolves played well, if they can't put that performance in on a regular basis, then they will be in and amongst the relegation candidates for sure. Moving on. Yeah, go on, sorry.
Brighton's fixtures change in the next couple. Like they've got West Ham, then they've got 2 or 3 hard ones. So
they've got Newcastle after West Ham.
Yeah, well, that could be hard. Depends on what Newcastle turn up, to be fair. I'd be interested to see like what level Brighton are at by, say, game week 7 and 8.
Like you say, it would be interesting to observe this. I mean, we'll see. I think Brighton need to win all their games before the Europa League starts, just to make sure that they get as many points where they don't play in Europe as they possibly can, just because you don't know what will happen after or during the Europa League campaign, however long it may last.
You won't want to play them. That's the problem.
I think Brighton can always be dangerous if you underestimate them.
Yeah, but you don't, at the minute, the way they're playing, you wouldn't want to be playing Brighton. Like, Newcastle might be sitting there thinking, oh, yeah, it's a winnable game. You go into that game like that and good luck, because I'll be honest, I don't think, I know we'll come to them, but I don't think Newcastle have been that good. But Brighton, I think they've been the best team in the league so far, attacking-wise.
Yes, I'd agree there. And I think a lot of people, you've had people saying, oh, Brighton, they will not be as good. They've lost players and, the Europa League. But I do think, at least for the time being, Brighton are very much carrying on the momentum from last season that they had under De Zerbi. So, yes, I agree. I think playing Brighton now would be quite a challenge. And, yeah, not an impossible one, but certainly they can beat a lot of the teams in this division. To be honest, I think they can give any team a run for their money, because of they're not afraid to play. They're not afraid to take teams on, really, because they've learned from last season as to how much that can gain them, to be honest. We'll move on to the next game. It's Tottenham versus Manchester United. First game for Ange Postecoglou at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and it was a positive one. Tottenham beating woeful Manchester United 2-0. I dare almost say that Man United looked more Spursy than Spurs. But hey-ho, George, we'll start... Actually, no, Nick, we'll start with Nick first. What did you think of the game? We'll leave George to last on this.
I think Man United were the better team first half, but they just didn't take the chances. And then, and that came back to bite them, really, because second half they were awful. Tottenham were much better, and way better second half. And than Man United and got the 2 goals. Just think Man United just won at the race the second half. I think if they had taken the chances they had in the first half, I think it would have been a totally different game. I think Man United would have gone on and won. But I'm guessing Tottenham, it's a positive. The more on the front foot under this new manager than previous managers. But I was just really disappointed with Man United in the second half.
George, when it comes to Man United first, I mean, it's an interesting one. Rashford was played right up front, and it seemed like he didn't want to play in that position. Mason Mount, I mean, I'm glad the money we got for him, because it certainly didn't seem like he was worth that money. United seems to have problems all over the shop. I don't know what's causing that. And then when it comes to Tottenham, they're so far having no striker. I mean, it's only been 2 games, but it's not caused them too many problems. What was your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, a bit like what Nick said. When United in the first half, I thought they could have had a penalty, to be honest. But they don't get that, so you have to get on with that. They just didn't take the chances. The thing with Rashford, he don't like playing that number 9 role. You see the best of Rashford when he's on that left wing, with Højlund coming in, hopefully for them this weekend, we might see a better Rashford. But I just think that they looked absolutely terrible. Like you say, I thought I was watching Spurs from last season, to be honest. Tottenham on the front foot played some nice football for them. Problem with Tottenham is that they're playing really well winning, but if you're looking at them on an FPL thing, it's a headache because you don't know who to go for, because none of their strikers have scored. I suppose it's one game, isn't it? Like, Tottenham fans are going to have a bit of like a bring the DVD out moment, but good result for them, I suppose. It'd be interesting to see. You know what it's like, mate, when you have a new manager come in, it's positive at the start and you have a couple of dodgy results. That's more when, like, the games they've played, I don't think they wouldn't have had to have relied on Kane, if that makes sense. Like, you could have, like, the way they were playing attacking football against teams like United and the Brentford game, it kind of wrote itself. Whereas the games that I think the Tottenham-Chelsea game that's coming up, I think it's coming up. I think that'll be a big test for them. I think the game at the Emirates will be a test for them. They're the sort of games that you've got to look at, because Tottenham have a good record against the Manchester teams that they seem to at home anyway. But yeah, give them credit. But I thought United just rolled over from second half. So Man United have got a lot to do for me. They were lucky against Wolves. They didn't get nothing against Spurs. They've got Forest on the weekend at home. Do I think that's going to be easy? No, not really. Not the way United are playing.
And then Emirates and then Arsenal.
Yeah, so obviously I'm going to go for my team, but it won't be an easy game. Like, there is a chance that, I'm not saying it will happen, that United could have only 6 points out the first 4 games, or even worse, they may only have 3 or 4. So, and Mount's injured now, so that's probably the easiest 60-odd million that Chelsea are going to recuperate, to be honest.
I mean, looking at Mason Mount, even though he's injured, you do wonder how much of a big miss it is really for Manchester United, because Mason Mount, for whatever reason, has not really delivered anything. I mean, it's been 2 games, so it's difficult to make an accurate judgment. I guess you could argue that he needs more time, but when he could have done things, I don't think he has realistically for Man United. And I mean, they need Højlund as soon as possible because, having Nottingham Forest next, you'd think this game they must win if they don't want to kind of have a repeat of what happened last season. They must win. They must win against Forest, and it might not necessarily be easy. Forest, there are not many people expect them to beat United, for example. So I think that might spur them on. But we'll talk more about that next in the show later on the week. When it comes to this game, I think when it comes to Tottenham's performance, I said this to a Spurs fan I was watching the game with, they seem to be doing okay without a striker for now. But, I was also saying they don't really have many striker options, even if they were to reinvest the Kane money. They don't have many options out there available. There are players there that can score goals for Tottenham, but they're not really delivering it. I mean, there's Son, sure. But then, Richarlison, who I hope they kept a receipt for now it's doing okay, but how long before that Kane-shaped hole will start popping up more will be interesting to see. They've got Bournemouth next. You'd think they should do that. They should beat them, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Good start for Spurs and the Postecoglou, but for Manchester United, as it stands, definitely tricky. Hotspur United. What do you United fans think? What's going to happen? What do you need to do? What needs to happen at the club? Which players need to step up? Which players shouldn't be there? Which players shouldn't you have bought? And most importantly, also, which players do you still want to buy? There's a bit of the transfer window still to go. And of course, there is our transfer deadline day special, which we will talk about more as we get closer to it. Right, moving on to the next game. And I chose to watch this game on Saturday night, Nick. It was probably the most overhyped, boring game I've watched. I mean, it takes something when the commentators start discussing how long it takes to get them to certain locations on a bike. Nick, what did you think of the game? I mean, it was a loss for Newcastle, but in terms of just in general, the excitement of the game, did you watch it? What did you think of it?
I didn't watch it because of the fact we don't have TNT. So I'm
Did
guessing,
you not listen to it on the radio?
Well, I was listening to other things, but Man City dominated the ball quite a lot. So Newcastle, well, first half it was a lot of Man City possession and quite a lot of chances. And then really well taken goal by Alvarez. But second half, Newcastle improved a little bit and did have some efforts on goal, but not really much happened. It wasn't really an exciting game. So I think Newcastle are still quite a way off Man City. They got closer with this in this winter, but I think there's still quite a chasm between them. And Lewis Hall is now signed for Newcastle, so that's a good thing. So, and if we got something on this game out, it would have been a bonus. Because I still think we still got a way to go before we're really competing with Man City. I do think we need to play better on. Hopefully this week we play better against Liverpool and win. But Joe Linton went off injured, so he might be missing against Liverpool.
I mean, George, what were your thoughts in the game? Because I know obviously you were away over the weekend, but did you manage to catch at least the highlights or watch any of the game?
I watched a bit of it. I was surprised you didn't listen to the game, Nick. It's like one of the biggest games of the season. But I thought it was just boring. Like, to be honest, and that's why I think I think part of it was boring because of the way Newcastle's set up. Like whenever they play big games, they don't really attack. Like we've seen it under Eddie Howe last season. That when they played Arsenal twice, they didn't know how to attack. Last season, City didn't. And they battered them. I'm surprised it was only 1-0. Yeah, a little bit. But I think City just done what they had to do. Really, I agree with Nick that they're still quite far away from City, but I think they're quite far away from Arsenal as well. Like Newcastle, like they don't change things for me. Like if one thing's not working, they haven't got the players to change it. Where they should. Like, they've got some quality players. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, they haven't, because they have. But you've got to be able to make some subs that change the game in a certain way, whereas Newcastle haven't got that yet. Maybe they'll get that in the next season or 2 seasons. But yeah, they're still being to challenge for top 4, but that all depends how they cope with being in Europe. City, they're City, aren't they? Haaland was kept quiet, really. I suppose that's the only positive for Newcastle could say, but don't really matter when you've got Alvarez and players like that. I think Alvarez is having quite a good start to the season, to be honest. He's getting a lot of games played. Phil Foden obviously was magical again. So I did laugh that Pep Guardiola basically had to beg the Man City fans to get behind them before the game. So it just shows how a plastic club they are. But Newcastle got Liverpool. I think Liverpool beat Newcastle as well. But we'll just have to wait and see with that.
Yeah, I think for me, I wanted the game to end as soon as possible because it was. I think there was a lot of hype about that game leading up to it. There was a lot talked about it, and it was hyped up to be a spectacle, and it was far from it, to be honest. That one goal was that's all it was really. To keep Haaland quiet is an achievement, but unfortunately, keeping a player quiet doesn't always get you the 3 points, or not even always not even always going to get you 1 point. Will Newcastle still challenge for the title? Not sure about for the title, according to some people, but will they challenge for top 4? Yeah, I think they still will. But I think when it comes to City, they get the job done. They get the 3 points over the line, and they do what they have to do. Even if it is boring, they don't care. They get what they have to do. But when it comes to Man City fans, I've said this, when it comes to the Premier League, there are a lot of clubs in the Premier League where the fans are incredibly silent. And as a footballer, you don't want to see that when you play for your club. You want to see the fans making noise. And I'm not saying this about every Premier League team, but there are Premier League teams where there's tumbleweed rather than fans singing, in my opinion. That game, it was not the spectacle that I think everyone was hoping for. I think people were hoping for like a 3-2 or a 3-3. Sadly, we didn't get that Man City win, and they maintain a 100% record also. So we move on to Sunday's game. Sunday's games, and we're going to start with Aston Villa 4, Everton 0. I mean, Villa doing pretty well after their shellacking from Newcastle the week before. Nick, Everton, on the other hand, though, it's the same story as it is so far for the last few seasons. Everton very much looking woeful, looking dreadful, and very much in the relegation battle. And I don't know what do you think? Because for me, I feel that's going to carry on for pretty much the season, the way it's going.
I think I listened to well, I listened to the first half of this game because tennis was a bit later on Sunday, so I got the first half in. But Everton were absolutely woeful. Villa deserved to win this game very comfortably. They were played really well, Villa, and they got Diaby, Leon Bailey, Watkins. They just tore Everton apart. Everton were just defending. They just woeful, and Cavaloon being injured again didn't help them. I just feel Everton again, like last 2 seasons, are going to be battling relegation. I think they will stay up still. Sean Dyche will find a way to get them to stay up, but I do think they need to sign players towards the back end of the window to get more goals into the team, because that's their major issue at the moment.
I mean, I'd say Everton need to sign players as soon as possible because, we all say that Sean Dyche will probably get them out of it, but let's be honest, you can have as many lives as you want, but they're going to run out soon enough. George, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought Everton were quite poor. I think what a lot of problems is there's a couple of players there whose futures are shrouded in doubt, like with unless he's gone, is Damari Gray and I think his name's Anana, the midfield.
Yeah, Anana, the Belgium.
Yeah, so that obviously doesn't help. Calvert-Lewin again doesn't help, so they need a striker now. They've just bought one, so like a young kid. So hopefully that helps them.
I think are they looking at signing Shea Adams as well?
Yeah.
Everton.
So if they get Shea Adams, that'll already improve them. I just think maybe Dyche was a short-term fix. It works, but does it work long-term? I know people will say to me, "Oh, but it did at Burnley," but Burnley and Everton are two complete different teams, and that was just a blip, like because no manager really stays that long now. The longest I can think of are like the top managers. At the bottom, there's not really any long ones. Maybe Moyes. So I don't know. Like, I think Everton might just stay up. It all depends, but. They've got Wolves this weekend. For me, that's mad. The first game of the season, but I think it's a 6-pointer, and that's absolutely crazy when you say it like that. Villa, good side. I wasn't really surprised they lost their first game because Emery always loses his first game. So, I wasn't surprised about that. It's the 5th time out of 7 seasons at 4 different clubs that he's lost the first game of the season. So. There's a useless stat for anyone who wants to know that. But they bounced back, like Leon Bailey. It's good to see him playing again. Moussa Diaby playing well. Watkins. I think it's a very good move that they've took him off of penalties. So, because he hasn't got a very good record. And Matty Cash got me a clean sheet, so I'll take that as well. But going forward, I think Villa have got a good side. They brought in a couple of players as well. I think they'll continue to bring more in. The only one I do feel sorry for apparently is Philip Coutinho because it looks like he's done his ACL. So hopefully he gets back fit soon. I don't like to see anyone do that ACL. You know how bad that is from.
Yeah,
recent.
I think that's 3 ACLs that happened to Villa players.
Yeah, you don't need to pray to me to tell me. I'm an Arsenal supporter, and half our team, our women's team, got ruled out with the ACL. So, I think we had Beth Mead, Viv Miedemar, Leah Williamson, Tia Goldie, who's just done her ACL. So, I don't know if there's something in it they can look at. There was another player done their ACL, wasn't there? I'm trying to think who it was. Like another Premier League player. I can't think who it was for now. But it's something they've got to look at. But my only worry for Coutinho is his age. So hopefully he can be okay. But Was it Mins? Didn't he do his ACL?
Mings, yeah,
Yeah,
Mings
that's
and
the one.
Gwendier.
It was-
Gwendier and Mings.
Not
Yeah.
Gwendy as well.
So yeah, they'll all be sharing crutches the way they're going. So,
And Bella are playing again tomorrow night in the Conference League.
yeah, so it'd be interesting to see what they do because obviously they might want to alternate it. I mean, I was listening to a podcast and what people were saying is some of the teams who enter the league, like the cups that early, normally play like a B team. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. They haven't got an easy game on the weekend, really. Burnley away, so.
And
No, and then it's
Burnley have
Liverpool
a
after
longer
that.
break.
I think it's Liverpool after that in the Premier League because they're playing the second leg in between.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting, really. But Emery knows what to do in the European trophy, doesn't he? Well, unless he's managing Arsenal. So yeah, Everton. I don't know. I don't know with Everton. I just think they're very poor.
They are quite poor, and I think, like I said, you can fight relegation every season, and if you escape it every season, brilliant. But I think, 9 lives are going to be up eventually, and I think they were looking dreadful, and more injuries they're picking up as well. Yeah, they've got Wolves, and I think again, it shows the competitiveness of the Premier League when you are 3 weeks in and you're starting to talk about 6 pointers, I think. And there are a few games where you're kind of going to go must win. United Forest must win, Everton Wolves must win, and another must win I think is coming up shortly as well for when we're going to talk about the next 2 teams. When we're going to move on now to West Ham versus Chelsea, a London derby. I'd say there was a little bit surprising. It was West Ham 3, Chelsea 1, with Chuamaka scoring for Chelsea and then getting quite a nasty-looking injury, which has taken him out for 8 to 6 weeks. And, of course, there was goals from Aguerd. I think that's how you pronounce him.
Yeah.
What hurts me to say is a cracking goal from Antonio, because it was a cracking goal, even though it was against my team. And Lucas Paquetá, who went down like he got hit by a bus in that game, scoring as well. So, George, let's start with you on this one. West Ham, so far, not looking too bad, despite most people having them as surprise relegation candidates. James Ward-Prowse scoring, getting 2 assists. What do you think of the game?
There's quite a lot I want to say about this game. I don't think they look that bad, West Ham. I think it's a bit hard to say yet. You can notice them not playing with Declan Rice, but I'm going to say that. But I think James Ward-Prowse and Edson Alvarez are 2 very, very good signings. I know Antonio scored in that game, but I still think they need a proper centre forward because he's getting on a bit, but that was a very good goal. Yeah, I think with West Ham, they're kind of pulling together a bit now, and a couple more players, and then they should be all right. But Chelsea, I don't know. I understand it's only the start of the season, but they just look all over the place, really. Like, for me, obviously they got the penalty, and then Enzo Fernandez missed that, and I'm just like, this is what it is, isn't it, really? But then
it was a terrible penalty.
They just fell apart after that penalty, though. Like, for me, Casado had a great debut, didn't he? Just
to say that Rangers are leading PSV 1-0 in the Champions League qualifier first leg.
Cool. Yeah, and I'm just like, some of it don't make sense. I'll be honest, I thought Raheem Sterling had a terrible start, but then he got better as the game went on. Ben Chilwell was playing as a left winger, which, fair enough. I like that if he's going to play in FPL. But it just goes back again, having a striker again. There's a lot of, the problem is when you buy loads and loads of players, they have to all gel. Pochettino, that is the issue he's going to have. Like, it's going to take a while for them to gel. So I don't think you'll see the best of Chelsea until Christmas, really. I'm not saying they're not going to win or anything by then, because they will, but I don't think you'll see how Chelsea really want to set up until then. The penalty that Chelsea gave away, that was just stupid, really. But we won't bet on Paqueta score it. Well, he probably would, wouldn't he? But yeah, it was a decent penalty. It was a good win for West Ham. I think Chelsea will bounce back against Luton, to be honest. The Hubert derby.
Well, we'll be doing a show during the Luton game, so yeah.
So
Yeah.
It'd be an interesting game. So with the West Ham one, it's like they've started okay. We'll say they started okay. They drew to Bournemouth, didn't they? So that have they really started that okay? They had to beat Chelsea, but it'd be interesting. They've got Brighton on weekend, so who I don't think they ever beat. So it's just how we can change in football. Like we were saying about Man United, they could go either have 6 or 9 points in the start, or not really. So, but on the Chelsea game, yeah, they played all right, to be fair.
Nick, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the Chelsea West Ham game?
Chelsea started for first half. Chelsea were quite decent. They played really well, but they should. I think the penalty miss was the turning point, because West Ham second half were much better and got the 2 goals. Yes, they had a player sent off, but Chelsea just it just really struggled second half, and things just didn't go right for them. I do think they do have good players in that squad, but I just think they need to gel together, and I think Pochettino will get the best out of them eventually. And I think the youngster that scored for Chelsea, he is a good player, but it was just a shame he got injured. So I do think Chelsea will be fine, but it was just one of those things that things just fell apart for them in the second half.
I think when it comes to, I'll chuck my thoughts in on the game. I think when it comes to Chelsea, there's a few things that stood out for me, and few selection questions. When it comes to Sterling, I think later in the game he looked pretty good. He's definitely looking slowly better this season than he did last season. I mean, last season he was terrible again. As I've said last week, I think it doesn't say much because most Chelsea players looked terrible last season, but I'm liking the glimpses of a potential partnership between Sterling and Nicholas Jackson. How that will develop throughout the season, and if it will develop, will be interesting. But these players seem to be working quite well together, which is nice to see. Another one is on Axel Disasi, which is, it's good that he got a goal. I think he got booked in both games, but he got a goal against Liverpool, fair enough. But it's one of these defenders where I do actually wonder how good he is, and also compare him to a defender like Trevor Chalobah, who can play in his position. And I do personally think that, is he as good as Trevor Chalobah, or is he, I think he's equally as good. And I think Trevor Chalobah could have probably started in his place, maybe, because I think he's just had that bit more experience in the Premier League than Disasi, because he played in the Premier League a few seasons already. I was glad to see Pochettino doing what not many managers did and giving youngsters a chance. It was good to see Marlon Gusto get his first start for Chelsea. He's a good backup for James. Not equally as talented as Reece James, but certainly a good talent that can develop his potential. So there were, despite the loss, there were some good things seen on that pitch. But I think, there's work to be done at Chelsea, and I think the squad will get better and the team will get better. But I think, as I've said again on these shows previously, I think we'll need to arm ourselves with a lot of patience when it comes to Chelsea fans. when it comes to West Ham, I think it's a very good win for them, and I think one that will definitely boost them because not many people have given them the win against Chelsea before the game started, and I think that will give them a boost. We'll talk Brighton West Ham on the previous show, but certainly a good boosting win there for the Hammers. Right, we'll move on to the last game, and this game has caused debates, shall we say, in our social groups. We'll talk about Palace Arsenal, and George, we will go to you because you're obviously being an Arsenal fan. It'd be good to get your views on the game. It finished Crystal Palace 0, Arsenal 1 with
Odegaard
scoring, and there was a sending off, and there was also another injury to add to the list, I believe. George, what are your thoughts on the game?
So it's not easy playing Palace away from home. I was going to throw in it's not Eze, but a bit early for that.
Yeah, I've seen that on your Facebook.
So I thought we dominated the game, to be honest. Eddie Nketiah should have took a couple of chances. And he's not clinical enough for me. And that is my problem, unfortunately, with him. Like, all right, he got us the penalty, but if he takes one or two of those chances, the game becomes not as hard. It was a good penalty. I'm glad Odegaard took it. I'm not sure if that means Saka's off penalties. I know a lot of people are talking about that, but I don't think it necessarily does. I think it was just the way it come about. Odegaard's captain takes the penalty. And then we'll get to the decisions from the ref, because I think the referee has to take a lot of responsibility for that. Do I think Tomiyasu should have been sent off? No. I think the second booking is ridiculous. Like, I think it was Eze fouled. It might have been, or Ayew. Can't remember what one it was. But he hardly touches him. But what does me is the foul for one of the bookings before what Eze does on Saka, and nothing happens. So if you're giving that as the Tomiyasu booking, then you have to give that as an Eze booking. It's the inconsistencies for me. And then Tomiyasu's time-wasting so-called booking, that was 8 seconds he had the ball when Havertz had it for 15 and nothing happened to him. So why are you not booking Havertz? So that's where my frustration is. And it was spoke about that the ref was an Arsenal fan. I'd like to see where. I thought Saka was absolutely booted up in the air a good couple of times. Ayew should change his name to Wilfred Ayew. But obviously the red card happened. Then we got a very good, they defended brilliant, Arsenal, in that second half, where other years we probably would have lost that. And it was good to see Zinchenko come back on, which was good. Injury-wise, I don't know if there was another injury, not that I know about, but well, I hope there wasn't. But yeah, not many teams this season can say like 100% record. So there'll be a lot of teams who will struggle with Palace or playing Palace at the Selhurst Park. So we just move on to Fulham, really. But one person I will say I thought had an amazing game again is Saliba. For someone his age, I just a lot of people bang on about Van Dijk, and I think Saliba's at that level already.
I think it's Nick. We'll go to you first with the game.
I think Arsenal should have won this more comfortably if they had taken their chance, if they'd taken the chances they had created, because he created quite a number of chances, but just didn't take them. Weren't clinical enough. Eventually, when they did get the penalty and scored that, it was well taken, but the game should have been out of sight by then. And then the red card, I think that was a bit very harsh. But with 10 men, Arsenal defended really well, which it shows real signs of Mikel Arteta improving the team defensively, and Arsenal have done really well under Mikel Arteta as management. I do think it's good. I do think playing Crystal Palace away to Crystal Palace will be a tough game for most teams this season, and the fact Arsenal won it's going to be it's a very good result for them, because I think very few teams will go there and win. So it's just a good performance. It was just a good performance by Arsenal, and they move on to Fulham with plenty of confidence.
It was certainly an interesting game, and I think when it comes to football fans and attitudes to refereeing, I think there were refereeing inconsistencies in the Palace game. But as I've said, with refereeing inconsistencies, you tell me which game doesn't have them these days, because I think there were plenty of games, even this weekend alone, where we could say that there were refereeing inconsistencies and there was inconsistent refereeing, and there were probably many games to come this season where this will be touched on. When it comes to fans complaining about referee decisions and saying, "Oh, this referee is the fan of the opposing team just because the decisions don't go our way," I think with that, it's kind of fan football bias, really, in my opinion, where you're bound to see, there are football fans that are bound to say that because obviously they want as many refereeing decisions to go their way. But also when it comes to these sorts of comments, I think people need to be also mindful of, how certain people react to these comments, because although the reactions may not always be right and justifiable, I think when people watch the game, I think we all know that certain moments can get a bit heated and a bit emotional, and people can certainly overreact. But all in all, it was an interesting game. There was a lot of things there that were quite interesting. There was a lot of questions, I think. Arsenal losing and more players, that's going to be, that to me, that'd be a concern, having a player sent off, having another injury. I think hopefully that's not going to cause too many problems, but I think because of the area that's in, I think that could make things quite interesting. But I think, George, the Gabriel mystery has been partially clarified based on what I've seen you post.
Yeah, so a lot of people have been putting 2 and 2 together and coming out with 7, because Gabriel's been on the bench the last couple of times, so now he could be off. Fabrizio Romano and Arteta have come out and said he's going nowhere. The reason Gabriel hasn't been playing is because Arteta has been playing a back 3, where we've not had a fit left back when Zinchenko's been injured. And then obviously Timber was playing there. And that obviously we know what happened there with the ACL there. But then as the back 3, Thomas Partey's an inverted right back, so he slots into midfield. So then you would have Ben White on the left. Ben White on the right side of a 3 of a centre half, and William Saliba, and then you was having Tomiyasu or Timber. So then they can play that left centre back role and left back role. Whereas Gabriel can only really play that left centre back role as if Zinchenko's playing back at left back. So we could see him play on Saturday, but there is a chance you might see Kivior play. But if Zinchenko's back, I can see Zinchenko coming in for Tomiyasu, and then you might see I don't know, you either see Partey or Kai Havertz or Eddie Nketiah drop out for Gabriel, and then they'd go back to playing the 4-3-3, what they normally do. And
just to give a shout out to John, who has come in to watch. He says hi, and he says says, "How are you?" We're all good, John. Good to have you Good to have you watching. You're gonna stop the show in a minute, but I want to ask you about, and I'm going to ask you both this. I'm going to ask Nick first. What's your view on Eddie Nketiah? Because he was another topic that was touched on heavily in the WhatsApp group yesterday, and it was a discussion of, what his quality as a striker, because he in interviews has said that, he's not here to fill in for anybody. He has the belief that he can be a starting striker, but so far, I don't know about you, but I've not seen evidence of that. Nick, what do you think?
When he has played the first two games, but I think he doesn't have the ruthlessness and clinical aspect of a striker at the moment. Because if a top striker would have taken the chances he missed against Palace, so I do think he's not at that top level currently, striker wise.
And George, your view on Eddie Nketiah? I mean, he was a great young talent at some point, but do you really see him developing here, or do you think he just needs to go somewhere else?
I think he's more of a top striker for someone like a Palace or a Brentford or a team like that. I don't think he has it in him to be as clinical as he needs to be for a title chasing team. He tries his best and works hard, and I'm not a huge fan of him, but I always back him. And he did play well yesterday, but when you look at it, would he get into any of those top four teams? He won't get in the City team. I don't think he'd get in the striker-wise. I don't think he would at Newcastle, because obviously Callum Wilson and Isak are pretty similar. Man United, maybe. Well, they would have done, but yeah, I don't know. The jury's still out for me. If we was offered 40 million, I would take it in a heartbeat, but I like to be proved wrong. But I don't think we've had a clinical striker since Aubameyang was on fire and Van Persie. So it's been a long time.
That's like us. The last time we had a proper striker was Diego Costa when he wasn't throwing his toys out the pram. Well, there we go. That is the show. That was the Premier League's action reviewed. Thank you, everyone, who watched live. Well, to John. And thank you to anyone who will watch this on demand. Now, we will be back with a preview show live on Friday. So you'll be getting live updates of Chelsea's trip to Kenilworth Road against Luton.
Is it not Chelsea? Is it not the Bridge?
Actually, no, it is at... Well, no, I blame TalkSport for this. It is at the Bridge, actually. Yeah. TalkSport said it was Kenilworth Road. They lied. So yeah, it will be at Stamford Bridge. So Luton travel to Chelsea. You'll be getting live updates from us. We will be getting people previewing the games, and we'll discuss whatever has gone on during the Chelsea game too, if anything headlining pops up. Before we finish, it will be the usual one. Social media plugins. George, where can people find you on X? No, because it's not Twitter anymore.
On X, you can find me at George AWFC.
It'll become normal one day to say it. Nick, how about you?
I am on X, and you can find me on at Nicholas Pages.
Yeah, I'm on X as well. Xing, posting, whatever you wish to call it. It is posting, but it's yeah. Anyway, we move on. I'm at Hubert3001. That is HUBERT 3001. So if you really want to, you can look at other content I do and stuff like that if you wish to follow that. And you can find us on at Golden Goal TV on the X machine. Not the Twitter machine anymore. We've got a Facebook group, and we are on WhatsApp as well. We've got a WhatsApp group. So if you want to get involved, and there's plenty to get involved with, we've got the Golden Goal Predictor. We've got news in the Facebook group and predictions. So plenty to get involved with. And of course, if you wish to feature on the channel and represent your football club, because we want people from different football clubs to come on and talk about your club. We don't just want the clubs we represent. We want everyone to give their view. You can let us know and we can add you to our contributors group. And then you can have a chance to feature on the show like Nick here. So please get in touch. So remember to subscribe to the channel. Remember to like, share, and of course, comment. It's always good. And click that bell, because when we go live, you will get a notification and you can tune in straight to that stream. So yes, thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next show.